for the first time ever, I kind of found my calling. It's like somewhere at this intersection. And so that just said like, okay, you should begin your career somewhat at the intersection of technology and law, which is what I did. And I was really a technology lawyer for the first, like part of my career.
That's amazing. I love the story around how much you really enjoyed school and you enjoyed law school. And we talk about that so much with young people is like you really want to find something that you're passionate about and that you can really get in that sense of flow with and be able to lose track of time and find those subjects as early as possible in your career. And that's one thing that we really push is, hey, if you could find subjects you really like at 14, 15, 16, you're going to be able to find a more fulfilling lifestyle for you. And so when you talk about your experiences in education and such, how did you end up finding these incredible companies before any of us did? Jared was lucky enough to get to go work at Spotify and Snapchat, and he was someone who was influential in building these, these unicorns, these decacorns of sorts because of your leadership. But when you joined, they weren't as sexy of companies as what they are today. Like, how did you discover them? What made you attracted to the startup scene?
There's luck, but there's luck in ways that people don't always think about, because if you like zoom out and look at like the macroeconomics and the cycles of certain industries, it just so happens that when I graduated college in the mid 90s, it was a really big boom for investment banking and the finance sector, period. And I lived in New York at the time. So a lot of people our age were really motivated to go down that path, somehow get involved in finance. But as I mentioned, my path was technology in New York. And if you had my interests of like being at the intersection of law and technology in San Francisco or Palo Alto or other parts of the world, there had been a lot of people with those interests. But to have those interests in New York at that time made you actually kind of a unicorn.
Yeah.
And frankly speaking, there were not a lot of opportunities to find those jobs. I got a little bit lucky because just as I was gaining some experience, like 4 or 5 years into my career, New York as an overall technology ecosystem started to gain steam. And one reason why it gained steam, I would say, is because of Google. And Google, which is obviously based in the Bay Area, its core business model is advertising. And the center of the advertising industry is in New York. And what it realized is to be a successful business, it would need to launch an office in New York, and it could attract the people who are connected to the advertising industry. And it did do that. But it also did something really smart. It said there's all these amazing engineers and computer scientists on the East Coast who go to like MIT or Carnegie Mellon or whatever, who would actually rather live in New York City than move to Palo Alto. And if you're one of those people and wanted to stay in the East Coast, your job would have been to go work at a bank or to go work in biotech or pharma. And Google's like, well, if we also created this great engineering center in New York, we might be able to attract that talent. And they succeeded. And so a few other more established or becoming more established tech companies started to open up these engineering hubs. And I think as those engineering hubs opened in New York, it really opened the door for tech, and which led to venture capitalists, which led to opportunities.
I love that. And it's so special to be able to understand how these ecosystems grew. One thing I think you have a really special perspective on being at these incredible companies is the founders, is the leaders, both Evan and Daniel, revolutionary founders. I definitely very much look up to both of them. Both are college dropouts. What do you think of that and how they were able to show that, hey, they got into great schools, they learned enough, but then they wanted to run with that vision? Like, where do you think of the landscape of high school, college, etc.?
Well, for me, like my path through education, I've always attributed to like opening doors for me.